Federal Flaws, Perceiving the Problem. Dedicated to the unliterate. This video is a legal notice that you might be participating in illegal activity which might be deemed treason. To better understand treason, let's examine the last major act of war within the United States of America, the attacks on September 11, 2001. There are three major sources of government documentation concerning September 11th. They are the National Institute of Science and Technology reports, the Federal Emergency Management Agency reports, and the 9/11 Commission report. Let's quickly summarize what these reports said about the attacks of September 11, 2001. The NIST report is statutorily barred from being admissible as evidence in court. Reading from United States Code Title 15, Section 281A, quote, "The National Institute of Standards and Technology, on its own initiative, but only after consultation with local authorities, may initiate and conduct investigations to determine the causes of structural failures in structures which are used or occupied by the general public. No part of any report resulting from such investigation, or from an investigation under the National Construction Safety Team Act, shall be admitted as evidence or used in any suit or action for damages arising out of any matter mentioned in such report." End quote. So the NIST report says exactly nothing about what happened on September 11th, 2001. The next reports to be examined are the FEMA reports. From the Code of Federal Regulation, Title 44, Section 5.87, we find that FEMA employees cannot testify in private litigation. If compelled to do so by a judge, subsection D of this regulation requires the FEMA employee to respectfully decline. Even if you could obtain the permission from the General Counsel for FEMA records concerning the events of September 11, 2001, this regulation prevents an opposing counsel from cross-examining the FEMA employees who prepared the documents. The rules of evidence in courts of law prevent this type of testimony. Just like the NIST reports, the FEMA reports have nothing to say about the events of 9/11. The 9/11 Commission was created by Public Law 107-306. Section 608, subsection A of that law, exempts the 9/11 Commission from the Federal Advisory Committee Act. The Federal Advisory Committee Act, found in the appendix to United States Code Title 5, provides general guidelines for advisory committees like the 9/11 Commission. Section 8, subsection B, establishes a requirement that there be a person who reports the Commission's findings for printing in the Federal Register. Since the 9/11 Commission was exempt from this act, no one reported the findings of the Commission to the Federal Register. United States Code Title 5, Section 552, still requires that the proceedings of the 9/11 Commission be submitted to the Federal Register, but no one is accountable for failing to do this. Section 552 makes it clear that if anything required to be printed in the Federal Register is not printed in the Federal Register, it cannot be used in any proceeding against someone who has not been given a actual and timely notice. Since the Commission only sent the report to the Congress and the President, then only those parties can have the 9/11 Commission report used against them. Even if the 9/11 Commission had not disbanded pursuant to Section 610 of the public law that created the Commission, they still couldn't be relied on to testify in courts of law because Section 609 of the Public Law 107-306 prohibits anyone without security clearance from seeing classified materials. In summary, what did the NIST reports, FEMA reports, and 9/11 Commission report tell us the official story of September 11, 2001 is? Nothing. The government accounts add up to hearsay. What does this mean? Anyone attempting to make claims about what happened on 9/11 based on the government reports might have to face charges of libel, slander, or fraud. Any action which hinders the investigation of who actually killed the victims of September 11th might result in charges of accessory after the fact in the murders of those who died on that day. The larger question is whether spreading the myth that there is an official story to 9/11 constitutes treason or not. The Constitution declares that treason must consist of making war against the United States or giving aid or comfort to an enemy. As we shall see later, since only the state of New York could have authorized the use of force at the Trade Center, and the state of New York could not authorize force against its own emergency services workers, the attacks were perpetrated by enemies of the United States of America. Preventing a full investigation of the attacks by knowingly spreading myths of an official story clearly aids and gives comfort to the enemy. But is there more opportunity for treason? A soldier guarding a prisoner who does nothing to stop the prisoner from escaping is in dereliction of duty. A guard who routinely facilitates the escape of prisoners is committing treason. If you remain silent about 9/11, are you committing treason? Being silent one time might be dereliction of duty, but after years of silence by the government and its officials, this silence is surely treason. The standards of treason require that first a duty to take a clear and accomplishable action must be established. For any person who has taken an oath to defend the Constitution against enemies, both foreign and domestic, there is a duty to act. The Declaration of Independence and the Ninth Amendment to the Constitution for the United States of America establishes a right and duty to resist a government when it becomes oppressive, regardless of who is to blame for the attacks of September 11th. To cover up the attacks is an oppressive measure that must be resisted. But what action is to be taken? A soldier who doesn't win a war isn't derelict in his duty because that duty is not clear. The only two clear duties that we have now are to speak up about our constitutional crisis and learn what to do next. To preserve the peace and protect those who serve in government, our legal system has a defined mechanism to resist tyranny. It begins with a step-by-step peaceful process that has a definite end. If the peaceful process fails, then our laws require armed resistance. The more knowledge you have about the peaceful process, the better the chance that peace will work. The mechanism to peacefully resist tyranny has three parts. First, you must pursue relief through the courts of law. Then petition the legislature and executive, and then wait 40 days. This may sound simple, but because of the confusion generated by legalese, it is not simple. Just because you are in a court in front of someone in a black robe called a judge does not mean you are in a court of law. Our federal system of government has two levels of legislature and executive departments that need to be petitioned. Using this process to resist tyranny amounts to constructing an affirmative defense to make war on your government. This process invokes the right of revolution. If you invoke the right of revolution properly, anyone who opposes you is committing treason. If you do it improperly, you are committing treason. The most important thing to understand is that your pleas in the courts of law and your petitions to Congress and your state legislature, the president, and your governor must be letter perfect or very close to letter perfect. Your petitions must clearly state the issues involved so that you have a clear defense for your actions, and the agents of the government have no defense for their actions. So, whether you are willing to resist an oppressive government and invoke the right of revolution, or you just want to understand what you can do to protect yourself if you serve in the military or the police of an oppressive government, the Federal Flaws Project has something to offer, because in both cases, you're just trying to avoid committing treason.